I'm delighted to be joined by Carol Gilden. She's a partner at Cohen Milstein, and she's just hot-footed it from her appearance on the Securities Class Actions panel. Thanks for joining us, Carol.
Oh, my pleasure.
In your panel, you talked about filings in the US
Yes.
remaining chiefly stable, but more claims being dismissed. Why is that?
Well, I don't know if I would say quite more claims are being dismissed. There is a certain number of cases. I think proportionately we've seen the law settle out. And so if you look at the number of dismissals really on a proportionate basis, I don't view them necessarily in general as increasing. Now, in certain areas where perhaps there are newer cases, for example, the SPACs, or areas that we're now starting to see. We used to see greenwashing, now we're seeing AI washing. So the law, as it develops, of course, sometimes will result in more dismissals, because keep in mind, in the U.S. system, the courts are the gatekeepers.
Yeah. Can I pick you up on AI washing,
Yes.
which is not something I've heard before? Can you explain it a little bit?
Well, I think with AI washing, what we're seeing is companies are making certain representations regarding the use of AI in their business for different applications. And so from a security standpoint, our cases all resolve around disclosure and the accuracy of disclosures. And to the extent you have companies that sort of rush to jump on the bandwagon, shall we say, sometimes they're not as thoughtful or as accurate in their attempt to raise investor capital, because they will describe things in a fashion that are not fully accurate.
Another thing you mentioned in the panel was that the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is rolling back on its enforcement.
Yes, it is.
Which is not entirely unsurprising, given we have a very business-friendly White House,
Yes,
I
we
think it's
do.
fair to say. Will litigation pick up the slack, or are we going to see a bit of a free-for-all for malfeasance?
That's a very interesting question. So, taking a step back, securities class actions have always necessarily been the complement to enforcement actions. They don't depend on enforcement actions. They don't look to have enforcement actions to give the genesis of new claims. So I think rather than seeing cases pick up, what we will see is perhaps more reliance on securities class actions as a means for investors to achieve accountability in those instances where they overpay for the value of a stock because it's inflated due to fraud. I think what we will see, taking also into account the SEC's new policy change, which was a major shift in terms of the SEC's corporate mission, and a major shift in terms of litigation and recognizing the adjunct that private securities class action plays to enforcement matters. And I'll add, that was something that the Supreme Court itself has recognized. We will see increased reliance on private securities class actions. We may see more litigation moving to arbitration, to the extent there are a few companies that attempt to test the waters and follow the SEC's new policy of allowing securities claims to be brought in arbitration rather than in court. That being said, and in that scenario, what one could expect is a massive number of cases being filed and being brought in arbitration. So there's a difference in terms of the courts and in arbitration. I dare say I think the bulk of companies will wisely recognize the value that a securities class action plays in terms of the rule of law, an established body of law, and also the ability to obtain total peace, if you will. That is one of the advantages of a class action, as opposed to mandatory arbitration of individual claims, where one can envision a scenario where dozens, hundreds, thousands of individual investors now would be forced to file claims if the company includes mandatory arbitration provisions. But that would even be thinking it through only as to certain categories of defendants. The accountants still would be sued in federal court. So on balance, I think litigation is just going to continue.
I wonder what your view is on these events, continually popular, continually full of people. How do you see the value in this sort of convening?
Well, I have to say, first of all, I think this is an amazing conference. I have been very impressed with the caliber of the speakers, with the quality of the talks. This is the first time I've attended one of your events here, and I think there is tremendous value, in people coming together and networking and having opportunities to learn from one another. And the reality is, while Zoom has sort of entered our workplace, Teams, Google Meets, it is no substitution for being live and in person and having the opportunity to meet people and hear from them firsthand. So all in all, I think your symposium is a smashing success, and I will be back.
Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.